please give Dylan and the panel a hand.
We'll start there. I haven't seen this deck yet, so this is great. Thanks, everyone, for coming out today. It's great to get all these people together. I'm really excited to, one, be here to introduce you to a few of these people if you haven't met them yet. In Portland, we've got Jamin, who came in from New York City. That was a great new company that we had in our last New York City class with Dash. And then Daryl Whitelaw came up from San Francisco, and I've known Daryl for a long time as someone who's made a lot of things. And I think all four of the people we have on this is important to reflect that they're makers, not just marketers. It's kind of this new movement of delighting with disruption are things that they really do on a daily basis. And whether they all openly admit it or not, I've got them to share some good examples of some things they've done. Myself, I've been in Portland a while. Right now I work for Techstars, which is a venture company out of Boulder, Colorado. And we're fortunate enough to work with Jesse and the rest of the Nike team on the Nike Accelerator, working on Fuel, working on FuelBand, Nike Plus, and looking at how Fuel and FuelBand and physical activity can merge with digital activity, how lifestyle is impacted by social, how everything we do now connects. As he was pointing out prior, to every device on his body that connects with each other, we're at that point in time. We're going to see more and more and more of this. And I don't know whether it's good or bad yet, but it's happening. Our organization, we have the Nike Accelerator here. We have 9 other locations from London to Boston to Austin, Texas. But my charter now is to focus in on high target vertical markets. So right now, I get to spend my days, almost every day, meeting with people that are disruptive. I won't use the innovate word because that was boycotted from the last speaker. But people that are disruptive to industries, that are changing the way we use tools and products and web interfaces and mobile interfaces and even agricultural technology and clean tech in new ways. So I get to meet these makers every single day and these dreamers, and hopefully bring, the way we do is we bring about 150 of these companies to life through funding them every year. So I feel fortunate about just being to meet and interact with a lot of people like this. We've got a lot of people that are going to be familiar with Nike, if you're from Portland or anywhere in the world. And Jesse's led the digital, the global brand team, really creating that experience worldwide. And he has a massive team that work around the world with him to help him execute. Probably not big enough, but it's pretty exciting to see what he's going to do. And I'm excited for him to share a few stories. Daryl will be next. Daryl's going to talk about some of the new things he's doing with normal technology that you might use every day that you don't realize the experiences you're having with it, and how they're doing it in a better, easier, more useful way. And then Kim, of course, if you're in Portland and you haven't been to Salt and Straw yet, you need to move to Vancouver. Because there isn't one there yet, and you won't be tempted. But it's amazing to see if you've been, and I think there's some samples after today. So if you haven't tasted it yet, you guys are going to be allowed to try some of the ice cream. It's amazing. Now, when's the last time you thought you would eat blue cheese and pear in your ice cream, or goat cheese and pepper jelly in your ice cream? Right? All these different unique flavors that they're creating are mind blowing. I remember the first time I sat in line around the block, going, am I seriously waiting for a scoop of ice cream?
You gotta just go to the pint.
I know. And now I know some secrets of how to get it faster. But I think that's a great thing. And it's kind of core to Portland, right, as a culture here of what we do. But it's not just to Portland anymore. It's everywhere. And whether it was a trend that started here or multiple places, we've taken it on more than anyone else. I think we live it. We question everything we eat and wait online for and eat and drink, and everything has to have a story. And Jamin's done something incredibly interesting. And from the technology standpoint, he's built a company called Dash. And anyone know of Dash yet? Have they seen what it does? He's created a way in which, you can actually have a relationship. In my words, and he'll explain it better, but you can create a relationship with your car. And maybe some of you are bikers and want a relationship with your bike, but it's really interesting what they've done to disrupt that experience. If I own a car, I put gas in it, I drive it to work, I park it. And at some point in time, something might go wrong. I don't know what it is, and I'm just afraid it's going to cost me $500. They've built a better experience out of that.
So my name's Daryl, Daryl Whitelaw. I'm from an experience design studio named Siberia. We're in New York and San Francisco. And when we set out to do what we were doing, it was really to just solve business problems with design thinking. Instead of going the McKinsey routes and wholesale firing entire departments, how can you use that design thinking to get the same kind of business results? And because of that, it helps having come from the background that I did. I tell people all the time that I sell sugary soda to children and bad credit lines to adults. Can everybody figure out what industry I work in?
Advertising.
Advertising. So I spent many, many years working in the advertising industry. It's an interesting industry for someone like me because I actually make really bad television. Because of that, I've spent most of my career making things that knucklehead creative directors put ads into. And that's translated really well for me as the entire industry has moved away from a shouting at people system into a creating experiences that people want to be part of that are ingrained in a brand. So all those years of getting paid less have really worked out for me in the long run. Anyway, we can kick right off. This is actually one of the projects that we're working on right now, and it's not done, but we were approached by a small startup named Go Watch It. And one of the things that really drew me, before I kick into this, actually, I'm going to backtrack. One of the things that drew me to what Dylan wanted to do with this panel around disrupting with delight is that disruption is sometimes taken as a very aggressive thing. And I don't think people really look at the subtler effects of disruption and being able to do great things for people when they're least expecting it and having a positive reaction to disruption. It also works two ways in the fact that there's disrupting business and then there's disrupting users. This was one of the cases where we addressed it and we looked at the existing product that they had, and it was good. It did the job. But the reality is for the user, what they were attempting to extract was data. They needed data for the studios in Hollywood in order to be able to create their business model out of that. It just sometimes tends to be a little on the nose. So when we approached this, what we did was we decided instead of disrupting the user flow, it was to disrupt the business flow. Talk to the investment bankers and the investors in the company and figure out a way that we could create a more linear experience for users that wouldn't be as aggressive, but completely changed the way they harvested data to ultimately get more on the back end. And what that did was it started making more content-driven experiences that, one, were just genuinely more pleasing to users. If anyone's looking at this on the existing site on a laptop or an iPad or something, you'll see what I'm talking about. It's very straightforward. Search something, queue it, line it up, give us data about what you thought about it, tell us would you go see a sequel. Like it's a harsh experience. So by taking that step back and making something that was a little bit lighter on the user, but at the same time changing their business model to be from data collection up front and treating people as product to treating them as users they wanted something to do with and that they wanted to form a longer relationship with. Another example of the delight, but more on the user side, is when we were creating an ATM finder for Citibank. One of the things that we looked at was who here gets cash from ATMs? Just raise your hand. Do you care where you get your cash from? Except for the $4.50 fee that they take from you. But the reality is when every bank goes through and makes an ATM finder, it becomes their ATMs. And we looked at a very subtle thing, licensing the Frommer's global ATM list for a whopping cost of $179.95. Was able to actually give people access to money when they need it, as opposed to access to a Citibank when they needed it. This is actually 2.5 years ago, so I really haven't done anything interesting in 2.5 years. But the goal was just getting a large institution like this to start thinking about, it's not about you, it's about your users. And how do you break their expectation? When anyone opens up an ATM finder, they expect to see, great, I have a 6-block walk to get to my closest bank. Not to see that if you're willing to accept the risk, you can go to Hidalgo's Bodega over on Marcy Avenue and you can pick yourself up $20. So it's really important that these companies, and this is what we push so hard for, and what I hope everyone else is pushing so hard for, is to let themselves take a back seat. Create that level of happiness and delight in their users and their customers. And then one of the last parts here is this is another product launching this month, and it's called Liner, and it's a used car. It's a CMS and inventory control system for used car dealers, entirely mobile-based. And right now, if you walk into your typical mom-and-pop used car dealership that is not a CarMax or some other large chain, you'll typically find a key taped to an index card. And it's a really low-fi system. Actually, I think the lowest fi you can possibly get. But when we started building this thing out, and we started especially doing the interview process, most of the answers were, well, I don't really need anything more. It would be great if you gave me something that would put those cards on a screen. Can you do something where I can take a picture of the card? I think was actually one of the direct quotes we got in an interview with one of the salesmen. And as we were building out the idea of it, we kind of realized that there were 12 fields to fill out. Something that they're used to filling out every day, no issues, no problems. They have to do it anyway, and they fill it out. But we looked at the car and took a step back, and we looked at what was the one thing in the car that every car has that allows you to get a ton of data from it, and that was the VIN number. And nobody once in all of our interviews, I think almost 150 interviews, once said to us that VIN number was a source of logic, or something that would help them. And we did some sniffing around, and again, the whopping cost from Data One is $1,000 a year to run a VIN decoder with unlimited decodes. So this tiny little expense that we were able to put in on the company side was able to create just endless value in time, because 9 of the 12 options in here, with the exception of, I believe, price, condition, and one more, the mileage. Price, condition, and mileage are the only variables that you can't pull out of a VIN number. So being able to create that kind of experience for people, something that was entirely unexpected for them, and honestly highly disruptive to the used car industry, because the more they can actually input and the more they can get out, and as used cars stop being something that's sold on a mom and pop lot and start to become a more internet-based service, they're struggling to catch up. They're an industry that hasn't been innovated on in years, if at all. So the idea of bringing that in and allowing them to get as many cars in as rapidly as possible, and to just type in a VIN number, fill out everything, get your price in there, get any remarks you have, and be able to post it to Craigslist, post it to eBay Motors. It's the idea of just rapid input and rapid sales. So that's my 3 things here.
Yeah, the biggest takeaway with Daryl and all the work I've seen him do for a long time is he finds ways to take a lot of things away to make the experience better. Like things you can't probably sit in a conference room and you're brainstorming, you're like, we need to add more red, we need to add more of this. And it's actually
my people I work with hate me. Not clients. Clients love me. Clients love me. But the people I work with hate me because every feature is feature bloat.
Yeah.
No matter what you suggest, it's probably feature bloat unless you can make a really, really compelling argument to me to put it in there. And it's just because that level, again, everything is frustration. If you look at everything that you want to do as frustration, then you end up with a really base product.
Yeah, I'd say time and time again, that's what I've seen him do. And it's really interesting to see, like, this new app, I really like the idea a lot, as it's going to, it's so easy just to type in this VIN number, and even if you use an optical scanner in the future, you could just shoot the VIN number on the dashboard, and now as a auto broker, I don't have to worry about it. I know my inventory on the fly at 3 in the morning, at any time, CRM in the future for it to be able to assign people that buy from me names. And when they're looking for a Volvo, they're looking for a Jetta, they're looking whatever I know when it comes on the lot. So it's a really interesting solution to a big market problem.
And this was also a bit of a cheater end because it's the first thing that we've done that didn't have a client behind it. So we're allowed to fail, again, cripplingly well. And if the whole thing goes south, there's nobody to sue us. There's nobody to get angry. I throw this in because it's a really great example of, again, the delight that you can show by just completely changing in the way an industry works. They're happy, they're okay, but when you do something like this and you make it simple, they're going to be happy with it. The other examples are just more client-focused. Being able to tell people to take risks and move back from their own selfish gain is maybe the right way.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Daryl.
All right, okay. Hello, I'm Kim Malik from Salt and Straw. Just out of curiosity, how many people have been to Salt and Straw in the room? Okay, so
She's been there more than once, I think.
All right, first of all, thank you. All right, there we are. I started out Salt and Straw. We opened as a food cart. June 2011, so a little more than 2 years ago. And we make small batch ice cream by hand, about 5 gallons at a time. So we make it continuously, lots and lots of it. But this idea actually started for me back in 1996. And I started working for a really small company right out of college. Called Starbucks. There were about 30 stores, and my parents felt very sad for me because I didn't get a very good job. No one had ever heard of this company. My mom was saving my bedroom for like 3 years. I kept saying, no, it's going to be okay. Someday we're going to make it. It'll be okay. And as the company grew, I had a lot of really wonderful opportunities. But I always missed the days when it was really small, and I got to work with the local PTA and knew intimately the people who were, buying and producing and growing our products, and that really got me excited, that feeling and sense of community. And so in 1996, I told a friend in Portland, I'd like to open an ice cream shop in Portland, Oregon someday. I think that would have that same kind of sense of community that I really love. So then I went on to live in fear of that idea. I worked for a lot of great Fortune 500 companies all over the United States, and was commuting to New York and considering moving there from Seattle when one fateful weekend I met a guy in a bar in Portland. And instead of moving to New York, decided to move to Portland for love. And he found out I'd had this crazy idea, and asked me why I didn't want to do it and give it a try and go for it. And I said, well, I'd like to be able to eat and have a place to live. Those are the two things that I'm most afraid of. And he said, well, I can't really give you any money to start your company, but you can stay at my place and room and board for 1 year. So now what? And I was like, fuck. It's been so great having this dream, that no one ever called me on. So I proceeded to meet with a million banks, and of course no one in 2011 was going to give you any money, so I cashed in my 401k, the one thing I still had from my corporate life, and started this company. And my cousin had been studying business in China, and decided he was on the wrong path and wanted to drop out and go to culinary school. And again, my family thought that was very crazy. But he moved to Portland as well and helped me. He moved into our basement and started making ice cream. And that's how we started the company, with a little cart out on Alberta Street. About 6 weeks after we opened, we were named the new standard to beat by the Wall Street Journal, which is a really funny story I'll tell you over drinks sometime. By the end of the next summer, we were Oprah's favorite ice cream, and on. We were blown away. And for me, it all comes back to that idea of community. So people will often say, gosh, you have really long lines, and isn't that exciting? And I say, no, it's really stressful. We're trying to get through the lines and make sure everybody's happy and keep up our quality. But what it means to me is that idea of community, and coming back to that idea, which was my original dream. It's people having that moment to spend with their friends and family, maybe run into their neighbor. I can't tell you how many times people say, like, I'm going to buy the person behind me a scoop because I got to know them online. And where do we get to do that, nowadays? To me, that's the real honor. So the definition of community for us is defined by 3 things. So first of all, it's obviously our stores and our customers. And I just got this great letter from a customer. I pulled out part of the quote. Where people they really feed back to us like, gosh, I get that moment where I'm taken care of for a second. And that's such an honor for me and for our team to have that someone called it the anti-rush, where I get to the front of this really long line and I feel like I should hurry, but instead the person who's helping me takes an extra moment to tell that story about where the chocolate came from, or how this idea came to Tyler in the middle of the night to, add bone marrow and cherry together and create an ice cream. And that storytelling and that connection is what we're all about, and it's what fires me up and gets me, coming into work every day. And our team takes a lot of time. Someone wrote me a letter literally just last week and said that she's a mother of 3, and she went into Salt and Straw last week, and she actually felt human for a second. And so that kind of connection to me is quite an honor, and to have a place, where people can spend that moment with their family or just treat themselves or be taken care of for a moment is what's central to what we're all about and what we're excited about when we see these long lines. The second part is obviously the product. And people will often say, like, how did you come up with sea urchin ice cream? That sounds really crazy. Or, all these incredibly bizarre flavors. But for us, it's never to do something outrageous. It always goes back to the idea of sort of like discovering Oregon through ice cream. And we quickly realized there was this great opportunity to do that. We obviously wanted to work with local farmers, and I think in the beginning there was one flavor, something around maple and bacon, that we didn't want to do because Denny's was doing it, and it just seemed sort of trite. And Tyler, my cousin, was drinking a beer one day at a local brewer, and the guy said, he was saying, this brown ale really has a lot of mapley tones to it, and could we make an ice cream out of brown ale? You can't cook it down because it doesn't taste very good, and you can't pour beer into ice cream because it gets really icy. And so instead, they brought him back into the brewery, and they taught him how to re-brew the beer using cream, so to create that same experience. And then we called the guys at Olympic Provisions, who, they're a world famous charcuterie. We didn't even have a name yet. We didn't exist, and we said, we want to add bacon to this, and could you help us? And they said, come over tomorrow, we'll help you. And suddenly we realized there's this great power in collaborating, and it's like 1 + 1 = 5. And as we did that more and more through the community, right now we just got done with a chef series collaboration where you could learn about 5 different chefs who were here for the Portland Feast Food Festival through ice cream. So you could bring their style of cooking to life through an ice cream flavor and learn about these chefs that were in Feast. Or maybe you're learning about Portland's underground chocolatier scene, where we have all of these amazing tiny chocolate makers, and we're featuring one of each of them in our ice creams, or tea blenders, or cheese makers. I mean, the list goes on, and it's suddenly this idea of like, here's Portland through ice cream, and here's your community. And that's what leads us to these quote-unquote crazy flavors that we do. It's really a reflection of our city in the Willamette Valley. And then the last part for us is about the broader community. And, I mentioned earlier the PTA, and I'll just close with a story. We try to give at least 5% of our profits to charity. We were really proud to give, health insurance to our employees right out the gates and things like that. We founded the company believing that strong community equals a strong business. And so for us to invest in our community really is a sustainable way. And this little guy, Eric, we were named Bon Appetit's favorite milkshake. And so we thought, let's have all the PTAs that are near our stores do a contest, and the kids wrote in a haiku about their favorite milkshake, and he won. And so his whole class got a free milkshake party at Salt and Straw. And his parents pulled me aside, and they're, having a great time, and the parents said, this was really an amazing experience for our family. And I'm thinking, wow, okay, it's pretty fun. And they said, no, just so you know, when his poem was picked, we were told that he was going to have to read it in front of the whole school. And we thought there couldn't be anything worse because he has a really bad stuttering problem. And he'd never make it through his poem. So I saw a video of this. He got up on stage and he read the whole poem. He didn't stutter once. And he got off and everyone was high-fiving him and he was dancing. And he's never stuttered since. And to me, that was just the perfect example of that ripple effect you can have through business and investing in community, where you don't know what your effect you're going to have on someone else's life, and then what he may go on to do in this world. And so our team loves that story, and we love being able to give back and invest in the local community and develop relationships, and that's what we're all about.
Disrupting.
Okay, my name is Jamin Edis. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Dash. I speak funny because, like the Sting song, I'm an Englishman who lives in New York. I'm also a failed screenwriter. I'm a father of 2 young girls. And I'm now trying to build a startup after nearly 20 years of working as a stiff, wearing a suit, doing corporate work. I figured I'd go off and strike out on my own, and that's what we're doing with Dash. So at Dash, we're building a connected car platform. We've been around for about 14 months. We just finished the New York Techstars accelerator back in the summer. The vision we had when we started building Dash was to take 130 million cars on the road today in the US and turn them all into smart cars. And part of the inspiration behind that was this. Now, if you are a child of the 80s, as I used to have a ZX Spectrum as well, you'll remember this is Kit from Knight Rider. So growing up, I was obsessed with this show, with this car. I had the toy car. I had the David Hasselhoff action figure. I even grew a little mullet, which was pretty special. And we were promised that this would be the car of the future, a car that was packed full of technology, that talked to you, that helped you get out of problems that you had. But 30 years later, that science fiction didn't become science fact. And in fact, all of the computing power and the processing power and the software that we expected would end up in the dashboard of your car has ended up on your phone and on your tablet. And so we saw an opportunity to connect your car to your phone and to the cloud and create a whole suite of new experiences around that. And that's what we decided to build. So Dash is a hardware and a software product. Think of it like a Nike Fuel or a Fitbit for driving. We use a small commodity piece of hardware called an onboard diagnostic reader. You can get this for as low as $10 on Amazon. This plugs into any car on the road since 1996. It goes under your steering wheel. You can self-install it in 2 seconds. And from there, you connect it to your phone. So we've built this in Android, on iOS, and also for the web. And so once you pair it to your car, whenever you turn the key on your car, we start collecting data on how you're driving, who is driving, where are you going, what are you driving, why are you going there. And what you do with that data is really what we were trying to solve for as we were figuring out what the product would be. Because it's cool to be able to hack into your computer, but into your car, but then what? What do you do with all that information? So the value proposition that we have built the consumer product around is these 3 main areas: safety, savings, and social. Now, we did a lot of product benchmarking. We looked at things like OnStar, we looked at the operating systems in vehicles, and we found that universally they were pretty shitty, and that we could do something that was much more app-centric, that was a much more beautiful experience, one that was taking advantage of all the things that you could do on your phone and side-load that second screen experience into the car. Because by the time the software or even the hardware in your car hits the road, it's obsolete by about 5 years because of the product development lifecycle. We can turn things around in 5 weeks and push it to the experience. So in terms of safety, we focused around things like crash detection, but rather than paying $200 or $300 a year for OnStar, we give it to you for free. When your check engine light goes off, which is usually a period of kind of stress and anxiety, we tell you in plain English, in real time, what's wrong, what the severity of the issue is, where you can get it fixed, and what it will cost you in parts and labor. And we do all of that for free as well. We score your driving. It's out of 100, and it goes up and down at the end of every trip. On the one hand, it gamifies the driving experience, which is kind of fun. On the other hand, it also acts like a credit score. So as we show improvements in your driving behavior, it then translates into cost savings. So you can save 15, 20% on your insurance premiums, which can put up to $300 a year in your pocket. We can also help you save money on gas. We can help you save money on repairs and maintenance. In terms of the social aspect, if you think about your Foursquare check-ins and sharing your locations or sharing your running on Runkeeper or sharing your music on Spotify with your social graph, we do the same thing here as well. But rather than manually having to check into a trip, which is a pain in the backside, the second you turn the key, we start harvesting that information. You can have Dash in your pocket, passively backgrounding the experience, or you can dock it up on your head unit in the car. And then we give you this kind of Prius red-green gauge to gamify your driving experience. And we also switch the UI to much more auditory alerts. So you can make it speak like Kit in Knight Rider, and it will say, as I turn the key, "Good morning, Mr. Edis." And it'll give you inspirational and encouraging feedback while you're driving. And then at the end of your trip, if you've done well, you'll unlock badges or what we call bumper stickers. You'll get feedback on how to be a better driver. We'll tell you how your score went up or down, but we also want to turn that into real cost savings for you. Because people spend too much money on driving. They spend $10,000 to $15,000 a year here in the US. Also, cars are very complex. There are 30,000 moving parts in it. Most people don't know what's going on under the hood of their car. And we get rid of that kind of asymmetry of information for you as a driver when something goes wrong. We also help solve the problem that you feel you're getting ripped off when you walk into a mechanic. We'll tell you in plain English how you should be fixing that. We also create a leaderboard, and so you can see how you compare to your peer set for driving. Because all of this information that we're gathering, we see we're really just scratching the surface with it. If BMW call their cars the ultimate driving machine, we see cars as the ultimate data machine. And that's really what we are harnessing as an opportunity here with Dash. The consumer proposition is only the beginning for us, because we are gathering about 300 data points in all. We take it from the engine sensors, we pair that with the smartphone sensors, GPS, accelerometer, gyroscope, compass. We pair it with the social graph. So right now we're integrated with Facebook, and we're adding Twitter and Google+, so we know the demographics of the driver, gender, income, what you like, who your friends are. And then the final data vertical that we're tracking is what we call ambient information to do with driving. So that's taking in third-party APIs for weather, for traffic, for business information that you're driving past. So all of that we are calling the automotive graph. So if Pandora is your music graph, if Facebook is your social graph, we are building the automotive graph. And for us, that's really what powers the platform for what we are building. We are starting off with a consumer proposition that we've built on Android, iOS, and web. We are currently rolling that out in beta across the US, and we've tried it in 7 international markets. We've, I think, taken 30,000 miles of driving, 20 million data points, and you can get really interesting insights on that. So for example, we found that based off the Dash score, people in California are better drivers than people in New York. We found that people with Android are better drivers than those with iOS, and we finally answered the question of who's a better driver, men or women, and the answer is, of course, women.
What about New Yorkers that move to California?
Interesting. I'm going to do some cross-tabulation on that.
I ride a motorcycle, so I'm just terrible.
Yeah, it doesn't work, unfortunately, on that. So shortly after the consumer launch, which is going to come somewhere between 3 to 5 months from now, we'll be opening up the API to let third-party developers build on top of it. And then we'll be rolling out a suite of enterprise solutions for fleet management, for insurance telematics, for CRM for dealerships. And then, frankly, we don't have to solve all the problems. If we open up the platform and make the data accessible to developers, they can solve those feature sets for us. So we really see ourselves as part of a broader ecosystem and a way that we can harness smart connected devices and data to improve the way that people live their lives every day. So you have the Nest for the home, you have the Nike Fuel for your body, you now have Dash for driving. And so we'd love you guys to sign up for the beta, especially if you're Android users, please. Follow us on Dash Mobile, tweet I want Dash, we'll make sure we get you set up. We can talk a little bit about the delight aspect and the UX and product development process for us as a pre-launch startup in the Q&A. What I will say, and I brought this up in one of the breakout panels yesterday, when you're a bootstrap startup and you're resource constrained, time constrained, when we started this project 14 months ago, there were no competitors on the landscape, and now there are about 10. We have this kind of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And so what we're doing is pretty complex from an engineering perspective. We are building out multi-platform, we're working with dozens of hardware SKUs, and we are working with hundreds of models of cars. So it's a really tough engineering problem to try and solve, and we need to get that right first. Because if it doesn't work, there's no point launching it and coming to market. And so all this talk of delight and beautiful user experiences, for me, as the CEO part of the founding team, I'm driving that home all the time. For the CTO, he wants to kill me because I'm saying, make it beautiful, like, show me some whimsy, and he's saying, shut up. I just want to make it work. And so I'm looking forward to getting past that beta phase where we know that it works, and then adding in more and more of these delight moments to what we're building. But in broad strokes, that's what we are doing with Dash.
I mean, do you think, from all you guys out here, would a lot of you be happy if you had a Dash in your car to actually know what was happening? Would you find it useful? I would have. When I first saw you guys go into the New York program as one of the 10, I thought it was genius. I think it's the retrofitting of all the existing cars, even the new cars. I mean, they're overcomplicated. Outside of the Tesla, I don't know if anyone's really getting it right, and maybe they're just kind of the North Star to point to. But it kind of leads me to the question of, I had a few, and for sake of time, I'm going to cut it down. But it feels like all of these companies, all the examples you're seeing these guys strive so hard to create that amazing customer connection and experience. But in all the examples, from Nike to the City example, right, to Salt and Straw to Dash, everyone has a North Star they're pointing to, right? Everyone's like, that's why we're doing this. And everything else kind of follows underneath. And I think the question I have on that, you guys all emulate that. You're all pointing towards that, and you're all doing that daily. But are brands overall, is it becoming a norm that everyone has to create an experience? Is experience the new table stakes to get into launching or doing or participating in a consumer world today? Or what? I mean, I'm not quite sure. Are we trying too hard to create experience?
I would say absolutely. I mean, at this point, well, absolutely that it's table stakes. There's attention is at a premium, and channels are at a maximum. So you need to do something to separate that signal from the noise, and that makes it where you can no longer just step up and do whatever you want. You have to do things that people want to engage with, and if you don't create good experiences, nobody's going to want to engage with you.
Do you think that, on that, is the social reach now outweigh what it used to be? It's no longer the water cooler at the office, or right, whatever the old models might be, but it's now immediately, if I'm Instagramming my pear and blue cheese ice cream before I've even walked out of the door.
Well, it's not even just that. It was the United thing talking about before. I don't know about you guys. Anyone fly United in here?
No.
I fly United a lot. So if you don't fly United a lot, my experience is fucking awesome because yours is super shitty. So they only care about me. And I don't have a lot of followers on Twitter, but I have enough that when I say something, I get a phone call, not a tweet back. So, they're definitely parsing out because of social who needs to be taken care of. Squeaky wheel gets the grease mentality. But yeah, the social aspect of everything we do with brands is changing the entire landscape. You never had a voice before. Now you have a voice.
Anyone want to add to that at all?
I guess our philosophy around that, and what we try to look at every decision we make, we ask ourselves, is this what a generous brand would do? And we are so honored that every person who walks into our shop, we talk about it nonstop with our team, what an honor it is to have them come in and spend that moment, whether they're trying to, it's a dad who has his kid once a week and they want to have a memory for the rest of their life, or it's a first date, or it's just that, the way you're going to end your evening and, what you think about when you wake up the first thing the next morning. And so we're really honored to have you come in. And, I remember we were trying to figure out what spoons to use for samples, and we had all these different options, and we were asking, what would a generous brand do? And we picked metal spoons that were designed just so that felt good. And so I think, people have a lot of options, and it is such an honor to have them choose your company. And I think we need to honor that with what we deliver to them, and that's how we think of it.
Yeah, I would say that as Nike, it's easy. You have to focus on where kind of the company started, and when hearing Kim's story about her dream and kind of Salt and Straw as this local company, and you kind of that's how we like to look back on the way Nike started. It literally was a handshake between two individuals who had this kind of dream of serving runners, and really focusing on staying close to those roots allows and using new technology to do that allows you to really stay focused on creating value. And if you don't do that, then I think you run the risk of slipping. And if you start to slip, then you're not you lose your customer, and it becomes something that's just transaction based. So. Yes, it's overheard more, I think, today because of social media, but I think the focus still is back to what it always was. So just because it's overheard doesn't really change how and who you should focus on.
Is there one brand outside of your own that you guys look to for guidance? They create great experience, they create great delight, they're customer first?
I mean, we certainly had inspiration in terms of what we were building. We were lucky to work with Eyesight and some of the design team there in the early ideation of what we were doing. I remember some of the marching orders that we gave the team was make this look like Runkeeper meets Path, or Path, as you say in America. And I think we're constantly trying to sort of aspire for something like that. And for me, there's always a tension because part of me wants to put as many things in there as possible, which then leads down the feature creep road. I'm constantly struggling with that. The other thing is, I've got a sort of high bar of quality, and trying to wrestle this kind of idea of perfectionism versus just putting it out there and shipping it and iterating it is something I'm learning to try and do better
Not
every
really an
single
MVP
day.
kind of guy, are you?
What's that?
Not really a minimum viable product kind of guy.
No, exactly. But actually, so one fun thing is that we started off trying to aspire to be more like Path, and now we have their CEO Dave Morin as one of our investors. So that's great.
Yeah, you've got attracted a great group of investors
Yeah,
so
we
far.
love-
So that's awesome to see.